Whether it's cars, comics, video games, or violins, there's a little geek in all of us. It's time to give your geek a voice. It's time for Geek Therapy. Here's your host, Johnny Hamburger.
Holy crap. Another week, another Geek Therapy. And this time, it's not just me. It's not just my beautiful, glorious, angelic, annoying voice. I don't know if it's annoying to you, but by now I'm tired of hearing my own voice. So I have employed, well, for free, my buddy named Buddy, who's going to help me out with this episode. And he's in here and he's wearing his diaper because he's so scared of being on the air.
He's not that scared.
But he is wearing a diaper.
Yeah. Well, I'll do that for fun.
For theater of the mind, you'll just have to imagine that he's wearing a diaper. I'm wearing a diaper. Let's stop talking about diapers and talk about something that might induce the need for diapers, which is, for all the car geeks out there, Dodge this week has just unveiled. I'm going to touch my microphone quietly because everything going over the radio is 1,000 times louder. Dodge has just released and unveiled the new Dodge Demon, which I'm not a huge car guy by trade. I do like cars, obviously. Told you about the DeLorean.
You like DeLoreans.
I do like DeLoreans, but that's
a car.
It is certainly a car. It is certainly a car. But that's a geek thing. Like, I didn't grow up like other kids, other guys especially, had posters of like the Lamborghini Countach and Mustangs and stuff like that. I appreciated them, but I was never into cars. Other than the DeLorean, it flipped my little nerd brain once I realized that it was a real thing. From growing up with the movies, but then realizing that the DeLorean was like, that's a real car that you can buy?
I had a poster of a white Lamborghini Countach.
Was it a Countach?
It was a Countach.
Because I did like the, oh geez, I'm blanking out on it. The Diablo.
Yeah.
That's the only Lamborghini that I actually do want. Like, if I was loaded one day and had Jay Leno type of money to spend on cars, Jay Leno has a whole hangar full of cars, I'd buy a Diablo. And that's just because the video game I had, Need for Speed, I would always play as the Diablo and take it into oncoming traffic at 200 miles an hour and see what happened.
Yeah, I never liked the Diablo. I was always a Countach guy. I don't know why. It just looked... It looked more futuristic to me. I remember as a kid, I was like, everybody's going to be driving. It was a future car rather than a supercar, a high end. I always thought that everybody would be driving Lamborghinis.
It looked like it's
in 100 years.
Even today, the Countach, which came out in 1975. Car geeks out there are probably pulling their brains out. Pulling their hair out saying 1973. What was it? It was the 70s.
When it was in the 80s. I didn't even realize it was that old.
It went all the way to 88, I think, the Countach, and then the Diablo replaced it. The different iterations of, engine displacement and whatnot. Supposedly, and I do believe this because I do drive an 80s quote-unquote sports car, even though it's not that fast. Everything else about it is 80s sports car. That the Countach was horrible to drive.
Yes, no, they were horrible. They were death machines.
Not just death machines because, not just because of the speed, but because you can't see anything.
They were uncontrollable.
They were so huge, so wide. And what I'm talking about is, even in the DeLorean, and you drive old cars with manual transmissions, the clutches are so heavy in the shifting. Like, my modern daily driver is just silky smooth like it's nothing. Shifting gears in that thing is super buttery smooth. Shifting gears in a DeLorean, and I would imagine it's 100 times worse in a Countach because a Countach weighs a lot more. The transmission obviously is way beefier, and so you probably need like 2 feet pressing down on the clutch to get it in gear. I've heard it's terrible.
I had the opportunity. Actually, I didn't have the opportunity, but
Buddy has a Countach.
I was standing next to one that a friend of my father-in-law had, and I didn't have the nerve to ask him, can I get in and check it out?
What color was it?
It was white.
That's a good color.
Yeah, I have pictures of it somewhere.
Countach looks good in white.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen plenty of reviews of people driving Countaches on Top Gear and whatnot, and there's a little trick. Here's the thing. those super wide cars, like you open the door, there's still like another 2 feet of sill before you can actually sit in the seat. So since the Countach has no visibility, and why we're talking about the Countach, when I wanted to talk about the Demon.
I was about to ask about the Demon.
We'll get to the Demon, which blows the Countach away in every measurable fashion. Anyways, the Countach, there's a trick to reversing it. Like if you had to parallel park or do anything in reverse, you open the door, and then you take half your body outside the car, and you're working the clutch and the reverse and everything. It's just not a... Nobody buys a Countach like, yeah, this is going to be my daily driver.
Well, if you have a Countach, you have people to park it for you, I would think. That's true. You just stop at the curb and hand them the keys and go on about your business.
Yeah, you always have your designated Countach parker strapped to the roof of the car.
Right.
So when you get out, park this for me, Jeeves.
You throw them in the trunk.
There's no trunk. Just toss him on top of the engine. He's all burnt up. Anyways, the Dodge Demon, and the reason why this thing is obviously crazy, I think it has something like it's the most powerful production V8 ever made, even though it's got a supercharger the size of another engine on top of it. It's something like around 850 horsepower. And those numbers, when they say the horsepower numbers, they're usually being conservative with those estimates nowadays. They have to say like it's 850 when really it's probably pushing up maybe closer to 900. The point is 0 to 60 under 3 seconds. It's like 2.3 seconds.
That's uncalled for.
And I was telling him
in a Dodge.
And
the Hellcat wasn't enough for him.
Hellcat was like 700 horsepower. That's seriously kind of my point with all this is like how much. My mom was like, nobody needs that much power. It's like, Of course they don't need that much power, but it's cool it's all bragging rights. You don't...
Right.
You're cruising down 59 rush hour traffic going 30 miles an hour in a car with 900 horsepower. You're pretty much just praying it doesn't overheat.
Yeah. And what if it's like the Tesla and all it is a line of code that changed the Hellcat into the Demon, and the Hellcat was always an 800 plus horsepower engine?
Yeah. You could definitely get the Hellcat over 800 horsepower. Maybe just with engine management. The thing is, with the Demon, they made all sorts of improvements in much more heavy duty parts, like with the transmission and the rear end and stuff like that. To you don't want to hit the throttle in a 900 horsepower car and just like cracks in half.
Right.
So all the internals, not just the engine, is not just forged stronger, but everything is set up like a drag car. It's basically a drag car you can buy.
It is not for cornering.
You don't need a corner because you can go around the corner at 10 miles an hour and then blast down the straight at 200 miles an hour. You don't need to.
A Challenger, you can't corner anyway.
Yeah,
you don't.
American muscle cars. Yeah, they're not. No, they're not known to go around a corner.
No.
We'll come back to more of this discussion. That's a good first segment. Buddy's got his sea legs. He's going to take over the show for the next 3 segments. It's all the Buddy show now.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll come back to more Geek Therapy, talk more about the Demon, and God knows what else. We'll come to my little brain or Buddy's slightly larger brain.
Smaller brain.
Well, with our brains combined, we have one tiny brain. And we'll talk about whatever comes to our tiny brains. Stay right here. Geek Therapy. Send me an email, geektherapy@iheartmedia.com, and Instagram, Geek Therapy Radio on Instagram. Do all that social media bullish. I'll be right here. Come back to me. We will be right back. Welcome back to Geek Therapy Radio. You've got me, and Buddy. Buddy's here too. I'll be your mental curator for the evening. Buddy will also...
I will correct his mistakes.
Correct my mistakes. We had to take a little news break. I don't know why I'm telling you guys that. We didn't break for any news on this station, on KPRC. But anyways, Buddy's getting to see how the sausage is made. He's getting a good long gander at the sausage. He's a little bit too excited by that, but I digress.
I'm a behind the scenes nerd. I love behind the scenes. I interned at Channel 2.
So I did not know that.
Yeah, right out of when I finished college, part of the degree program was you had to intern somewhere.
For how long?
A couple of months. It wasn't a long internship, but it was fascinating.
Channel 2, which shares the same call letters for reasons I don't fully understand as this station, KPRC.
Yeah.
It's KPRC Channel 2, which obviously is completely different frequency range than AM radio. But yeah, Channel 2, that's... I did not... How long did you say? 6 months or something?
It wasn't even that long.
A semester?
Yeah, I guess it was a semester. Man, that was a long time ago.
Did they let you do the weather? Stand there and like, it's going to be hot today.
They did not, but I did run the board.
Awesome.
I recorded some little promo things and,
teases and
got to sit in the studio while they, shot the news live. All the cameras are robotic.
Yeah.
There's a guy that just sits in a booth and he looks at Perez Hilton at the time on his computer and, lets the robots do their thing.
Yeah, he's watching YouTube. He's already automated the robotic movements.
Right.
Anyways, during the break, there's a story that we heard about the new Star Wars trailer. And Buddy is one of the biggest Star Wars nerds you'll ever meet in your entire life. Also Legos. He builds Star Wars Lego sets. And I asked him one time, we'll get back to the new Star Wars, but I asked him one time, and he almost ripped my throat out. I said, so when you build like the Battlestar Galactica with Legos with the Wookiee inside, no, I didn't say that. But what I really said was when you build your big Lego Star Wars creations, do you use glue to keep it all together?
Blasphemy.
So it doesn't what if it falls over and it breaks?
Then you panic, you find all the pieces, you hope that you find all the pieces, and you try to put it back together.
I never thought about that before. I grew up playing with Legos like most children did, and I just thought, I honestly thought the guys who were seriously into building those sets, the big 10,000 piece Lego sets, I was like, surely they're putting a little dab of glue on each thing. No, apparently that'll get you crucified.
Yeah, no, my intention is eventually to take them all apart and build them again.
What?
That has not... Well, because half the fun of Lego is building it and creating. Actually, its whole intention is not even necessarily the kit. It's, okay, you build the thing that you're supposed to build, you tear it all down, and then you build whatever you want. You use your imagination, and but when you spend astronomical amounts of money on a set, you want to display said set because it's really cool looking.
I think within the next 2 or 3 years, whenever your son, I won't say his name on the air because identity and stuff, but it's the coolest name ever, when he inevitably yanks one of your Falcons or whatever off the shelf, you're just going to be like, oh, darn it.
Yeah.
And then get to build it again.
Yeah, that's going to be a really weird conflict in myself.
You will be pissed. I know.
I love him with everything that I possibly can, and yet I'm going to be so disappointed. I think I am. I probably won't be. It's not the end of the world. Like I said, you get on your hands and knees, you find all the pieces.
Yeah, it's like...
Life goes on.
Right. It's when things get into disrepair in my life, like things that I own, I'm not really that pissed. I'm like, oh, this will be fun to take apart and bust out the soldering iron. And
right. Now, if it's an adult that in a drunken stupor accidentally knocks over, then I come unglued. But when it's my own son, then, kids will be kids. And
if I come over, and I'm going to have a little bit more rum and coke now, but if I come over and say, is this a basketball?
Yeah, you're not going to come over anymore. You're going to...
Is this expensive? Is this Death Star? This looks like a basketball. I just take a 3-pointer with it.
Yeah, no.
You'll be upset?
A little bit.
Can I have more rum?
You can have as much rum as you can stand.
Well, there's not a lot in this.
Actually, you can't. Yeah, we're going to run out before that happens. But.
Check out that Foley work once again.
Uh-huh.
You want some?
Behind the scenes, yeah, I would love some. Go ahead.
You pour yourself.
Okay, fine. sitting here covering your show.
I know. I'll just let you talk
so
the whole time.
Now I got to pour my own drink and talk for you.
So, really, there's a new Star Wars movie coming out. I already blanked out on the name because, again, I'm not a huge Star Wars nerd.
The Last Jedi.
The Last Jedi. So Return of the Jedi comes out soon, and they released the trailer for it.
Yeah. I'm a horrible Star Wars nerd. Getting older, it makes it hard to be a super hardcore fan of anything. I didn't see Rogue One, which was the little standalone last one. I didn't see that until a couple of weeks ago when it came out on video.
I haven't seen many. I remember. Okay, let's talk about Jar Jar Binks.
Let's not.
What was that one called? It was episode
Phantom Menace.
1. Oh, yeah. I watched it and I enjoyed the movie. I guess. I mean, I did enjoy it, but then after there was all this hullabaloo about Jar Jar Binks, and I was like, didn't even notice. I just thought he was a goofy character. Like, he didn't enter my brain. But apparently, like, within the canon of Star Wars and all the geekdom of Star Wars, Jar Jar Binks was like, I was gonna use a bad analogy. He was not liked. Didn't they edit him out or something like that?
There is a cut of the movie. It's a fan made cut that they just completely take him out of the whole movie, which is probably about half of the scenes.
In retrospect,
you would have to edit. But I think George Lucas was making a movie for kids. Star Wars fans during the Phantom Menace period have grown up. We don't want silly, goofy characters that talk funny. We've grown up. We want the characters to grow up.
Return of the Jedi was 83, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That was the last one.
Mm-hmm.
That's when I was born, was 83.
Yeah.
So
I was born in 77 when the first one came out.
Yeah.
So
it came out in 83, and there was a 20, a little less than 20 years. When did the Phantom Menace? Like 2000, 99 or something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there was a good 20 years. I do remember when Phantom Menace came out that since I was a Back to the Future nerd, that's my canon of nerddom is those three movies. Star Wars is the canon of movies for Star Wars nerd, those three movies. So with all the mixed reviews and the arguing and just all the madness surrounding coming out with more Star Wars movies, to me being a Back to the Future nerd, I was crossing my fingers and praying, please, for the love of God, do not remake or add to Back to the Future. Because you know what it would be? It would be Dane Cook in a Prius.
Yeah.
It would not be the DeLorean anymore. It would be sucky.
So imagine a Back to the Future prequel with
Jar Jar Binks,
where Marty's dog can all of a sudden talk and trips over everything, and
Marty's dog.
He's a slapstick.
The professors.
That's what the Phantom Menace is to Star Wars fans,
right? Einstein, which is Doc's dog, would be. He could talk, except it wouldn't be named Einstein anymore. It'd be named Elon. Yeah, I think. What's that, Elon? It might be Elon Musk's actual voice. The point is, it would be terrible. Yeah. And you're taking it. I knew as soon as the new Star Wars started to come out, I was like, you're taking a big gamble. It's paramount to if someone right now came out of the woodwork and said, here's a New Testament of the Bible. Right. It would be so hard to push that, like, on Christians, for instance. Like, it's been tried before. Smith with the Mormons.
John Smith.
I guess it has taken a hold with the Mormons.
Yeah, well, there are people that like the prequels. Yeah, I mean they're 12.
The Old Testament and New Testament did pretty well.
Yeah.
So, but anyways, that's what I'm saying. But with Star Wars, it seems like there's even more of a fervor, more of an upset, and more of like you are really playing with fire here if you start remaking Star Wars movies, because for almost 20 years after the Return of the Jedi, it had time to sit and simmer and sink in and become basically part of the actual fibers of millions of nerds' lives. And as soon as you say, here's a new one, and here's Jar Jar freaking Binks.
And Darth Vader as a little kid.
Oh yeah, Anakin.
You know,
yep, a little lovable boy.
Not, I don't know. It just wasn't cool.
Pod racing scene was pretty cool.
That was awesome.
I wanted to take a test to see how many metachlorians I had, which I probably have one.
Yeah, that was a thing that they mentioned once and then realized, oops, that was dumb. And
was that not part of the original?
No.
They just made up metachlorians.
Made it up for that one movie.
And that's what the Force is.
Everybody was like, what? This is stupid. And they've never been mentioned again since.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
Because I guess that's kind of, because they try to quantify, I guess, what the Force is.
Yeah.
And it would be metachlorians.
And you had the whole Immaculate Conception thing.
Yeah.
And it just took a bad turn.
I could totally see. That's why I'm not a Star Wars nerd, is I didn't realize all these. I always knew that Star Wars, there are religious undertones to the Star Wars trilogy. It's, good versus evil and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I could see why Jar Jar Binks and metachlorians would piss off a lot of Star Wars nerds. So I hope this new Last Jedi movie I hope it kicks butt. I didn't see the last one.
I loved The Force Awakens. A lot of people were kind of iffy on it because it was sort of a rehash of New Hope.
Okay.
But yeah. I loved it because I wasn't old enough. I mean, I was a baby when New Hope, so I grew up already knowing the story and already, and I watched it when I was a kid. I liked the ships and the lightsabers and stuff, and the story really didn't mean anything to me. So Force Awakens was my first Star Wars that I could claim as my own. I mean, this is something brand new that I'm excited for, and I don't know what's going to happen, and I can watch it with fresh eyes, and it was awesome to me.
Yeah, I would watch it with 4 eyes. On that note, we'll be right back with more Geek Therapy. What are we at now? 12 minutes or so? Let's talk about all the ways we would destroy ourselves unintentionally with lightsabers. And we know we would, and we'd still want them. So let's talk about lightsabers a little bit when we come back. Okay, buddy?
Okay, I'm down.
And I have a lightsaber. I'll show you.
Do you?
Yeah, it works. I've only cut off one of my limbs so far. We'll be right back. More Geek Therapy. Geek Therapy at iHeartMedia.com. Geek Therapy Radio on Instagram. I got to keep plugging the social media stuff. And the podcasts are all over the place, too. Go to kprcradio.com for the codpasts. More codpasts at kprcradio.com. We'll be right back. More Geek Therapy. On that note, welcome back to Geek Therapy. We were talking about drone racing, and I know we'll talk about lightsabers and what people spend their money on and how you cut yourself in half with a lightsaber and how you do the same thing in a sports car. Drone racing. I think it was like a year ago. The sport is still now in its infancy, all things considered. But there was a guy in Dubai. I forget what his name was. He was some oil baron's son, and where the competitions that existed had top prizes of like $10,000 for coming in first place in this competition. And basically the courses were laid out with duct tape and pool noodles. This guy put up a couple $1 million of his own money, made this awesome course with lasers and all sorts. It looked like a Hollywood set. Like there was so much money spent on this course, and he made the grand prize $1 million. And he basically propelled a sport like 10 years into the future single-handedly with one competition.
$1 million
to race a drone.
Fly a drone. To just use your little thumbs.
Yeah.
And your little goggles.
There's some skill involved.
There's a lot of skill involved. I'm not taking anything away from that. Yeah. I'm saying $1 million.
$1 million freaking dollars.
That's
so
making me rethink some life choices.
Yeah, I should have. What am I doing in radio? I need to take my drone racing.
Yeah, invest a couple of $100 in a drone and in a little racing drone.
Yeah, those guys build theirs basically from scratch. They got 3D printers and they're using carbon fiber, and I don't know how much their racing drones cost. I'm gonna guess a couple thousand, probably
total
for a good racing drone. Those things haul. It's after the watershed.
Super fast, but there's nothing to them. It's like a little rectangle with some propellers on it.
Right.
I mean, they're little. The body ugly.
The body weighs like a gram.
Yeah.
And then there's the battery, which is most of the weight, and then there's these super high output propellers on it. Those things will get up, I think, over 60 miles an hour easy. I was watching YouTube of like this speed test, and the guy was like doing 120 like in these passes coming up, going by the camera. If you have a little drone coming at you that weighs like 10 grams, but it's going 100 miles an hour, you know the Kung Lao's hat in Mortal Kombat? There's got to be like that. Like, what happened?
That would probably take your head off.
If I'm going to get hit with a drone at 120 miles an hour, I would hope it at least look cool.
Well, the stuff that I've seen, they're racing, and the finish line is a net. It's a lacrosse net.
Oh, yeah.
And they are going... I mean, full tilt as fast as they can,
60 or 70,
straight into that net, and nothing happens. So
there's not much. There really isn't much weight, and to my knowledge, nobody has been killed by a drone yet.
I would say it would be super easy to get injured by one.
I think within the next few years. We last year, I think it was last year, I had to read the new law. The FAA passed a law. You had to register your drone. Any drone over half a pound or whatever, you have to register it.
Nice.
So mine has a serial number registered with the FAA. I had to spend like $5 for it. It's just a lifelong registration, so that when my drone goes in restricted airspace or does something illegal, they have the serial number. They identify me, and I get fined or thrown in jail, or whatever. I think even further than that. Buying a drone over half a pound is going to not only require registration, but is probably going to require some sort of liability insurance.
Right.
Like $1 a month or $1 a year or whatever. Yeah, because if you injure somebody with a drone, it's still pretty freaking unlikely. And the injury that they get is very unlikely to send them to the hospital. You'd probably still get sued.
Because if, for instance, you accidentally crash your drone into the side of a building.
Yeah, what idiot would do that?
It plummets to the ground. Well, what if it hits somebody on its way down from 50 feet in the air?
Okay,
that could be
full disclosure here. Full disclosure here. A few days after I got my drone, I accidentally, a series of events led to me crashing into the Williams Tower here in the Galleria. About 700 feet up. See what happened? Okay, it was 4:30 in the morning. Nobody was around. And the shot I was trying to get was a big, sweeping, like 360 arc around. Is it even called the Williams Tower anymore?
I don't know what. I still call it the Transco Tower.
Transco Tower, whatever. Here in the Galleria, the water wall's out in front of it. So I'm here at work at the studios here. I'm on the roof of the parking garage, and the drone has a very long range. It's like a mile or 2 miles. Everything was fine. My signal strength was perfect. I had a clear line of sight, mind you, to the drone. Everything was legit. So I was doing this arc around the tower at 400 feet, which is the legal altitude limit for drones. Everything was on paper. It was good, legit. Everything was fine. But still, I was like, what if something goes wrong? I'll do this at this time of morning that nobody will be around to get hurt if something goes wrong. And something went very wrong. I did this big sweeping arc. I was at literally a half mile from the building, just doing this huge, a radius of about a half mile, I would imagine, maybe 500 meters, something like that. A kilometer, that's a half mile. Anyways.
I'm just laughing at the fact that you're going metric all of a sudden.
Yeah, well, because in the app, in the flight data, I think it was set to metric meters. Doesn't matter.
No.
I was doing the sweeping arc, and it went behind the building, and I was like, maybe this. For whatever reason, I thought like this. I'll still have the signal strength. I might lose the video feed for sure because that's kind of a weaker type of signal. Anyways, it went behind the building, and as soon as it went behind the building, I lost all connection. Which still, in my brain, I was like, I'm fine, because when you lose connection to a DJI Phantom, it stops midair and it goes to its return to home routine. Like if it doesn't know, it will go to the altitude that you preset and then make a beeline right to where it took off.
Right.
So for the first couple seconds, I wasn't worried about it. I was like, it'll be fine. It's just going to come back to me. And then I remembered my altitude set is way lower than this building is. But it was still, I still had it over the altitude set. I had the altitude return to home altitude set to, well, I don't want to disclose it. I'll keep it. It was below the building, as it turned out. So as soon as I realized that it's going to beeline straight into because the building's between me and it. And as the crow flies, there's
a building
there.
Yeah.
So I immediately got in my car, and I'm driving down the feeder here with my remote control out the window, like with the antennas high up in the air, so I could get it to like reestablish a connection, so it would just hover again, maybe not hit the building. No such luck. So I parked near the water wall. I was like, I'm never going to see this drone again. Like for sure, it's hit the building and the pieces have landed on a ledge, an outcrop, because at the base of the building, like 10 floors up, there's balconies or whatever, like the outcropping of floors,
8 or 10 feet of things poking out of the side.
Right, where they have AC units or whatever is up there. About a quarter of the way of the building. Anyway, so I wasn't expecting ever to see the drone again, but I found it, and the sprinklers were on, so it was getting doused in sprinklers. The drone itself had landed not in the field in front of the water wall. It had landed on the side of the building, kind of closest to the street, where the grass was a lot taller. Mm-hmm. So the drone was there. The blades were the drone was in bad shape. It was in horrible shape and getting water sprinkled on it. The camera was nowhere to be found.
Just put it in a bag of rice. It'll be all right.
I wound up fixing it initially. So anyways, the drone body was in disrepair. The camera had sheared off. I thought I'd never see the camera again. But what I was worried about was where the battery was. And here's why it's scary. Here's why you register your drone with the FAA. And here's why I think you will definitely need liability insurance. It's because that battery weighs it weighs over a pound. Yeah. It is just a brick. And if it's a brick falling from a few hundred feet in the air, that thing will kill somebody.
And it's probably pretty volatile if it shorts, too.
Yeah.
The guy mowing the yard.
Boom, it'll hit you and catch you on fire. Like, it's crazy. That thing, the battery in the drone is what's deadly. It's not the blade spinning that's going to cut your head off. That's not really going to happen with a consumer drone. That's just not going to happen. The Mythbusters prove that. And I have stuck my hand in the full spinning blades of a DJI Phantom.
Why would you do that? Just
on accident.
Oh.
You're going to have a lot of accident with drones. So it smacked my finger and it drew a little bit of blood, but it really wasn't.
You still have all your fingers.
I still have all my fingers. It really wasn't that bad. So, but the battery had created such a crater in the earth. Granted, remember, this earth was wet. Their sprinklers were going. It was very mushy earth. But still, like, seeing that battery just buried into the topsoil, I was like, if that hit somebody, that would have probably killed somebody. So anyway, I went the next day as a Hail Mary to see if I could find the camera, because the camera's half the cost of the drone. And I did find the camera. And I wound up fixing it. I got a new yaw arm that somebody 3D printed on eBay or whatever, and I fixed it perfectly fine. It was perfectly fine until I most recently broke it trying to clear pine needles off my roof, which worked beautifully. I had the camera tilted down, and I was like buzzing over the roof, blowing all the pine needles off the roof. Everything was hunky dory until I got too close to a wall, and there's all sorts of air currents that happen when you get too close to a wall and a roof, and it kind of got sucked itself into the wall, and the camera got damaged again. And for some reason, I've tried a few different ribbon cables, cheap ones from China, so I'm going to try an actual good one that costs $20.
Can you get an OEM cable for it?
Yeah.
Okay.
For some reason, I'll try the $3 cable before I try the $12 cable. So I'm going to try one more cable from DJI. It costs like $20 or something like that. That's my last shot before I just say screw it. Because if I was saying, if I need a new new camera for it. It's like $300 or $400.
You know what? It's time to upgrade anyway, because that drone is bad mojo.
It is bad mojo.
And
that's the drone I had to learn all my lessons with.
there you go.
And that's one of my advices I give to people, thinking about getting into drones, is like, get a cheap one first. Get a quadcopter from Walmart, because you're going to smack. It's so much easier to stomach crashing a $30 drone than a $1,000 drone. So, anyways, that's the end of that segment. Now you know that I crashed my drone. You guys can rip on me, send me your hate mails, whatever. GeekTherapy@iHeartMedia.com, Geek Therapy Radio on Instagram. We'll be right back with one more short segment, because that one, we were about 13 minutes right there. We'll end it with a short fourth segment. It'll be the Buddy Show. We'll be right back.
No, it won't.
More Geek Therapy Radio. Buddy has Star Wars Barbies.
I do. I have. They're actually 6-scale replicas.
You should see the way his face is lighting up.
They're not even.
It might be the rum.
They're like, they have 30 some odd points of articulation and real woven cotton clothing and so much detail in these things.
Buddy has an intimate knowledge of the anatomy of
Star
Wars Barbies.
Yes, I do. They're just really cool. They're fun to pose.
Yeah, I bet. We were talking about, during the commercials, Buddy and I were talking about social media and it being stupid, and how he has an Instagram and he has 1,000 people wanting to be his friend, but he's too cool for school. So I'm just thinking now.
I didn't say I was too cool for school. I say I don't use the thing.
Okay, well, you should create an Instagram called like Star Wars Barbies and just be posting every day a new pose or a new doll.
I've thought about that.
There are people who do that. I follow a guy. He doesn't have, not a Barbie guy, but there's a guy. I forget his screen name. But anyways, he's an old school gamer. Like he posts like vintage video game stuff, like Game Boys and things like that. So every day he posts like screenshots of old like Atari games and old stuff like that. And so there are people who make entire Instagram accounts. Instagram is not just all half naked girls. That's 99% of it. Right. It sells. But there's actual people doing real people stuff on there, and I kind of wish social media. We would kind of be better off without it. Sip. Well, here's the thing. I'm glad, and you said you were born in '77. I was born in '83. I think I was the last generation to go through all of high school with no social media. I didn't even get a cell phone until like my senior year in high school, and that was for like emergencies. You weren't allowed to have your phone out, period, in high school. Now it's everyone, smartphones are just accepted. Could you imagine going through high school with having freaking social media? No. I'm so happy that was not part of the dynamic.
Such a more simple life. You had no idea where anybody was, and you had to call them on an analog phone, or go over to their house and knock on the door. Yeah, can so and so come out to play? Exactly, and it was amazing.
You know what?
It's no cyberbullying. No,
right. If you bully someone, it had to be to their face. Yeah, and then you dealt with it in not such a PC Glee type of way. Anyways, it's not my favorite part of not having social media and cell phones, but a very we used to, when you wanted to talk to a girl, you used to have to call her house and talk to her dad. Being 12 or 13 years old, is Megan there?
It's terrifying.
Who is this? This is Johnny. It made you a man. You had to. Girls really didn't call boys too much. I'm all about equal opportunity here in Geek Therapy, but by and large, 90% of the time, it was the guy calling the girl, and you had to talk to the girl's dad. Now,
you stalk their Facebook page.
Yeah, you stalk their Facebook page. I am so scared for my niece, and I couldn't imagine. I'm glad you had a boy.
I am too,
because 9-year-olds have smartphones and tablets now. Like, that terrifies me. If you have a daughter that's of dating age, she is talking to 100 more boys than you're ever even aware of now. Yep. Sending God knows what. And they're sending whatever the worst thing you're thinking that, no, there's no way my daughter's getting those kind of pictures. Yes, they freaking are. And that terrifies me. And so if I had a daughter, it'd be a sit-down talk like every day, like, what's going on? Like, I don't want to intrude in their life too much, but, like, I need to know, like, who's talking to you. It scares me that anybody willy-nilly could be talking to your daughter. So I'm just going to genetically alter any kids I have to, well, not exist.
You're gonna to not exist. Okay,
for now
that'll work.
For now,
yeah, and there must be something in the water because my son is 8 months old.
He already has a smartphone.
He can be on the floor with 15 different toys, and my phone is on the floor, not even on. No, it's not shiny. It's not, and that's what he reaches for.
Right.
They have to have their devices already out of the womb,
and that's crazy. That's the new world we live in.
It's pitiful.
And that's the end of Geek Therapy for this week. My eternal thanks to Buddy for helping me out with the show. I think it was really fun.
I did too. It was.
We'll have you on more often.
Okay.
Because if anyone's more of a geek, or at least on my level, it's Buddy. I was about to say your last name, but like I can't say so much on the radio. It's
I know.
It's unsafe. My name is Johnny Hamburger.
My name is Buddy.
But I'm supposed to be, or you can know my last name. Thank you for listening to Geek Therapy. Once again, send me an email. What do you want to talk about? Send me your geek things. geektherapy@iheartmedia.com. Again, that's geektherapy@iheartmedia.com. And follow the Instagram, Geek Therapy Radio on Instagram. And guess what? More of you are going to know that my show exists because I'm starting to get promotion now. Hooray!